Welcome to Born on the Bayou Sports, a Houston sports show made for Houstonians by Houstonians. Join Tim Costello and Scott Barzilla every week as they break down the latest in Houston Astros, Rockets, and Texans news. Tim's a former minor league broadcaster, and Scott has written 2 books on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Javier could get it figured out, it would make things a lot easier because he was that guy everybody was counting on this year to be a Cy Young candidate, take that big step forward and help anchor this rotation with Fromber.
Since he's come to Houston, you can look at the development of guys like Carlos Correa defensively, Jeremy Pena defensively. I mean, you can Alex Bregman's, certainly I think a better than average third baseman.
And now you're putting teams in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Now here comes Will Anderson. Pin back your ears, let's go. So if you're Bayou born and bred, or just like spending time in the H, sit down, relax, and stay Houston strong. Welcome into another fantastic edition of Born on the Bayou Sports. Tim Costello, Scott Barzilla coming to you hot. And Scott, I know you got a question for us here early, but maybe I'll relate it. Your performance hasn't been there lately. I think it's time to go to my backup co-host.
Well, I was going to ask, I went to the TCU Central Florida game this past week. They were almost going to make the Scumbag / horse's ass list, but, somebody beat them out, at the last minute. So just ask you, what is the very worst performance you have ever seen live at a sporting event?
I went to a UH game before Kelvin got there. That was pretty bad. I was one of like six people in the stands. We got our asses kicked.
On an individual basis, like, this guy sucked.
Saw Billy Wagner blow it in '98 against the Padres. Jim Leyritz took him deep. I don't know, man. I feel like I've been there for some special performances. Like I started an MVP chant at a Rockets game for James Harden once, but like I don't know if I can really remember like a bad one. Like,
well,
I take that back. It's coming to me now. Every time I saw Tim Redding start, it sucked. So like Tim Redding was the guy. Tim fucking Redding.
Because I saw one this weekend. The TCU Horned Frogs are up 28-7 in the second half and 31-14. And they lose 35-34. And they had a corner, and I'm not gonna call out his number. I'm not gonna call out his name. I'm gonna do the old-fashioned, we've got offsides on the defense, when they don't call out the jersey number. But this guy had 2 touchdowns on him, and I think 3 pass interference penalties.
Oof.
And it was like, hey, defensive coordinator, how don't we rotate a safety over there, or maybe yank this guy, put in another corner, let's do something. But I saw Carlos Delgado. Did you ever see Carlos Delgado play live?
I think you're talking about Carlos Santana, because Carlos Delgado was the first baseman for the.
No, I was talking about Carlos Delgado, first baseman for the Blue Jays.
You're saying play baseball live?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like music. Okay.
No. Carlos Delgado.
My bad.
We saw him at the ballpark at Arlington, and he came up as an outfielder. And he had a game where he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, grounded into a double play, 2 chances in the outfield, 2 errors. I don't know that I can really get much worse than that performance.
That's a bad day at work, man. Like I don't know if I could draw up a worse day at the office than producing 5 outs and 4 at bats and adding 2 extra outs into the pitcher's day.
I can go.
rough.
I am pretty reasonably certain if you stick me out in the outfield, I can produce that kind of performance.
I'd like to think I'm coming away with most most balls hitting my radius. I don't think I'm robbing a homer. I don't think at this point in my life I'm leaping up and robbing one. But I do like to think I'm making some plays out there.
Well, as they used to say, about some of the receivers, they said about me, I was running good routes out there. They just couldn't get the ball to me.
See, that's the thing. I'm not going to tell you as a receiver that I'm going to run great routes. I won't tell you that. But if I'm open and you throw it to me, I will catch it. I'm
Yeah,
always like at the family football games, I'm the quarterback. Like that's
I'm,
never a question.
I was a damn good receiver back in my day. But yeah, I scored 7 touchdowns in 7th grade. That was a pretty good season.
I led the league in both touchdowns thrown and interceptions thrown as a flag football quarterback for intramural football in college. So was not afraid to take a shot downfield, Scott.
Yeah. Well, speaking of quarterbacks, Tim, this is where I wanted to open up our shows because we saw on Sunday night, because I'm sure you were glued to the set as I was, number 2 overall pick last year, number 1 overall pick this year. I think we all know who got the better of that one. But coming away looking at Caleb Williams, what were your thoughts?
I thought, I don't know. I feel like that was a really bad showing. I truly feel like that was not as advertised, right? Like this is not the guy I was told we're gonna get. He, made some nice plays, escaped the pocket a couple times, but then like threw a pick after escaping the pocket. So like I feel like this isn't the the final version of him, and I think Stroud had some nice words for him on that. But like I think just as much of that goes on this defense, though. I think this is the highest percentage they've ever blitzed in the D'Amico Ryans era. They brought the heat, man, and they hit him, and they hit him hard, and they hit him a lot. And I don't know if he was ever touched this much in college or in high school or at any point in his life. He could out athlete people, but you ain't out athleting Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. Like it ain't happening. Those dudes are like Adonises.
Yeah, and I feel like the one game I did see him live, I saw him at the Cotton Bowl against Tulane, where USC did come up short. Really pissed me off because they were going to give away U of H tickets a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about the new head coach, and I was like, who's the only team he beat in a January 1st bowl game? And like, oh, but I had to call in. I'm on the road, and it's like, damn it. But he did throw a pick in that game, and it was a similar kind of pick where he's kind of running around trying to make a play. And I think he's got some of that Brett Favre in him, where I'm just, Josh Allen, where I'm going to try and rely on my arm talent to make plays. And sometimes in the NFL, we've seen that doesn't work. But, we've seen, I think, 3 rookie quarterbacks, unless I'm missing one, make their debuts this year. Including Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, along with Caleb Williams. So, out of those 3, are there any of those 3 that you definitely think this guy's sticking?
Not yet.
Not yet. Which kind of brings me to my point, because if we're a Houston-centric podcast, obviously we're looking at CJ Stroud, and everybody in Houston loves CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is definitely sticking. And the guy that everybody wanted on draft night, Bryce Young, has just been bitched. So I'm asking you, Tim Costello, let's say you're an NFL scout. How long does it take you to figure out that this is not the guy?
That's tough. I think there's extenuating circumstances, but like if I drafted him and he's been through my system and I've got good talent around him and we're still not getting there after 2 seasons, I don't know. I feel like that's what I'm looking to cut. Like first round picks come with a lot, but like if I got a team in place, like for example with the Niners with Nick, with Trey Lance, like they realized pretty quick, like, hey, this guy isn't the guy. We've got somebody who we think is the guy. We're cutting Trey Lance and we're moving on. So I think you've got to be able to pivot. The problem is the Panthers are fucking dog shit as an organization. And who knows if Bryce Young would have been better off with the Texans, right? Like, thank God everything worked out the way he did. I was one of those people who thought Stroud wasn't going to make it. I ate crow on our previous show, and I think you and I both, did not realize Stroud was going to be this good. But I don't think Bryce Young would have been this bad on the Houston Texans. Like, I have to feel like Bobby Slowick would have found ways to find success for him. I don't think he would have been CJ Stroud, but I do have to think that they would have done things to get some momentum going in his career other than just like everything that happened to him at this point.
Yeah, and that's where I think I'm with you there. I don't think CJ Stroud in Carolina.
No.
And I don't think Bryce Young is this version of Bryce Young in Houston. But I also agree that Bryce Young would not be as good as CJ Stroud is now. And I don't think CJ Stroud would be as bad as Bryce Young is there. And the name I was thinking of, you remember Josh Rosen back in the day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Cardinals gave up on him after 1 year, went out and got Kyler Murray, who's another guy who it took a while. Looks like he's kind of figured things out in a new system. So, you never know with these guys. And that's where I'm wondering with Bryce Young is I'm wondering if you could blow it all up in Carolina, tell the owner, sit down and shut the F up, could you hire a guy that could possibly turn him around?
I don't know. I really don't. Unless I'll give you one caveat that maybe could do it. And this is, again, a caveat that I don't even think is likely. But let's say Nick Saban doesn't enjoy retirement and he wants to front office dabble. Nick Saban takes a GM job in Carolina. Nick Saban, looking for a head coach, goes to Bill O'Brien, who worked with Bryce Young in Alabama. Again, this is like the most hypothetical, ridiculous scenario, but I think that's the one person who like could come in and be like, Bryce, you and me again, baby, we're gonna ride this thing, and he's gonna truly believe in it, right? Like, you've had now 2 head coaches in 2 years. You got roasted in year 1. Year 2, you're benched after 2 games. Like, how else can a new head coach come in and be like, yeah, we're gonna rally around Bryce, guys? Like, the old coaches sucked, unless it's Nick Saban, who's like, I want a fucking national championship with this guy. He's my guy. That's my coach. Let's ride. Like, that's the only way I see it happening.
What happens if, like, let's say Saban takes your job, but then says, I want Bobby Slowick? Do you think that could work?
I think Slowick could get more out of him. And I think an offense that had him on the move outside more often would be better for Bryce Young, because he's not that tall and he has trouble seeing over the middle of the field. So when he's outside the pocket using his athleticism and he could see more, I think that would be better for him. But I don't know. Like, I really don't like how much, like, this guy needs. Did you watch Full Swing at all? The golf documentary on Netflix?
I didn't get to, but
so real quick, they talk about there's 2 guys, Joel Damon and Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark is a guy who like was a nobody, great talent, ends up like winning a major last year, and they credit it to the fact that he started seeing a sports psychiatrist or psychologist, and they were begging Joel Damon to do the same, really trying to get him to do it because he has like the worst attitude you've ever seen in professional golf. That's like, we need a sports psychologist at this point to come into Carolina and have an honest conversation, right? Like, you've made a pretty big investment because you went through your whole scouting process. You traded a fucking ass load to go up and get this guy because you were dead sure of it. Dead fucking sure that this was your guy, right? You don't trade all that unless you are 1000% positive that this guy is going to change the trajectory of your franchise. Do you give you cannot cut bait after that after 2 years?
No, and the thing is, what I think his dad's a sports psychologist, so maybe he needs to fire his sports psychologist. I think what you need to do is you need to get a sports psychologist into the ownership box. So, like,
I think
listen,
you could
bud,
get rid of the sports word and just get a psychologist into that box.
and just say, like, okay, listen, bud, you need to hire smart people and you need to let them, because they mentioned when Frank Reich was coaching, he had a meeting every week with the owner. Do you think
Canales had one after week 1. And I'm pretty sure he had one after week 2, and the next, quarterback change.
Right. Do you think Cal McNair is meeting with D'Amico Ryans every week?
I think they do, but I don't think it's mandatory. I bet he just genuinely enjoys spending time with them because I don't think, but they say, D'Amico, Monday morning, 9 a.m., you're here. I would bet you D'Amico Monday morning is knocking on the door saying, hey, Cal, hey, Mrs. McNair, how are you doing? How was the weekend? How's the family? Okay, great win. See you around the building. That's normal to me. What is going on there is not normal. Even Jerry Jones doesn't do that.
Well, to me, what I would do, and I don't know if you remember this, because you remember when they ended up firing Charlie Casserly and Dom Capers. They brought in Dan Reeves.
Yes.
As a kind of a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
See, to me, if I'm setting up an organization, I'm doing the same thing in baseball. If I'm a billionaire, chances are I made my billions doing something else. I didn't make it in baseball or football. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire a president of operations. Now I'm going to say, you are my eyes and ears. You're going to hire a GM. You're going to hire a coach. They work for you. You work for me. So to me, then you can have that president in the box with you. And that president in the box is not necessarily meddling in the day-to-day operations of a team. They're there overseeing, and they're there to decide, okay, sorry, Frank Reich, you suck now, you're fired. But, why are we firing a coach less than a year into his first year? I mean, that's ridiculous.
He never should have hired in the first place. Like, let's go back to the fact that was the wrong hire. But no, I think you're right. The problem is, Scott, and you can send me on a tangent on this, though, but people who are billionaires or people who have the money to buy a team like that typically fall into two categories. Like, one, that get it. Like, look at Jim Crane. When he took over the Astros, he hired Reed Ryan. He hired Nolan Ryan. He got people in place that he could trust, like Jeff Lunau, or he thought, and he was hands-off. And he only became hands-on after the scandal when he said, I've got to become more involved. Now, then there's the other kind of extremely wealthy person who thinks because they were so good at X, they will also be good at Y. So they don't feel the need to do that. You've got your Jerry Joneses of the world. You've got your Dan Snyders of the world. You've got your Dave Teppers of the world, right? Where they feel the need to just fucking meddle because they think they're so good at what they do. This is Elon Musk syndrome, right? Like, you did one thing kind of well one time and made a lot of money for it. And now you think that you are just this creative genius because you've been able to buy a bunch of shit and put your name on it. And that's what these NFL owners are, right? Like, they bought an NFL team, so all of a sudden they're now the most important football opinion in the building because they own the fucking team. So it's kind of hard when you may have a plan and everything you want in place, but the owner's like, no, run the ball, baby, run that ball. I want to run it 3 yards of crowd of dust. And you're just like, hey, I really want to spread them out. We've got 5 great receivers on this team. We actually, our best running back got hurt last week. Hey, I really would like to, fucking next man up, run the ball, whatever it is, right? Like, you can't do what you want to do if you've got old man fucking River calling the shots.
Well, we know we have a good owner here in Houston.
Mrs. McNair is wonderful.
We've affectionately called Cal Tommy Boy, And like Tommy Boy, Tommy made good at the end of that movie.
You're right. I have said it over and over again, and I will continue to say it. Well, and if I ever meet Cal, I owe him the biggest apology of like I doubted you, and I'm sorry for that. Like, but Mrs. McNair, Hannah, I love what you've done. I
Yeah,
never doubted
absolutely.
you. Never doubted you.
Absolutely.
Who would have thought like his wife falling asleep at the game would have been like the turning point in this franchise? Like her just passing out in the box was like everything changed after that.
Yeah, and so after the first two games, I mean, obviously when you're 2-0, most of the things that you're looking at are going well. So start off with, what is the one nagging thing that you want to see fixed or improved?
Um, I'd like to get Tank involved a little more. I feel like we're lacking some of that big play explosiveness that he brought us. And I feel like we're a little bit more ground and pound, short intermediate throws with Nico making an occasional play here and there. I'd like some more explosiveness out of the offense. I think that'll come with time, but
I think it's
I
a good
do think
call.
we've lacked that home run punch through 2 weeks.
I'm wondering how much of that is, and then this is what we don't know through only two games, how much of that is them not going to tank, and how much of that is teams, purposefully taking tank away from you, or purposely saying we don't want to get beat deep. Now
Possibly.
they did miss on, Stroud missed on one throw to tank,
Tank dropped
where he had,
one.
where he had gotten behind the line. But what I think with me, my thing is, I think these are two different kinds of football games, which to me is the most encouraging thing, because when you can win a shootout and you can then turn around and win a defensive battle, that shows that you have a diverse team that can win in a number of ways. But I think if there's one thing that this team had in common, is that those should have been 2-score wins both weeks.
Yeah.
But I think you had key mistakes that just happened at certain key moments. To me, I'm looking at you, Cam Akers, fumbling inside the 5-yard line. I'm looking at the entire team. Laramie Tunsil averaging 2 false starts a week. I'm looking at 12 penalties for 115 yards. And there was a drive or two, and I think that on that field goal drive in the second half, the only one the Bears had was kept alive by defensive penalties. And so this team is going to need to clear up those mistakes, because I'm sorry, even though Baltimore's 0-2, I think Baltimore and Kansas City are still the gold standard in the AFC, and you can't go against those teams and have those kind of key mistakes happen and expect to win.
I don't disagree with you. I think they've overcome those things early on. I think CJ's been hit maybe a little bit more than you would have liked to at this point in the season.
Yeah.
He's taken some sacks. I think part of that is CJ is much more willing to just take the sack than he is to force a throw and try and get picked. He's tried to throw him away a couple times, and like he's been picked off last year on a ball he tried to throw away. He almost got picked off in week 1 on a ball he tried to throw away. So I feel like he's just willing to, like, you know what, I'll just take the sack. Like I feel like that is kind of part of it there, where he's like, I'm just not even going to risk it. And I feel like this offense has been very bland through 2 weeks, and I think part of that again is the Colts are a pretty good defense based on what everyone was said, like on a run defense, right? And we just ran it right down their fucking throats. And the Bears defense completely won them their first game, right? Like they forced turnovers. They are a good defense. They stopped the run. And I just think they went in saying, look, if we don't turn the ball over and we play good defense, we will win this game. And that's kind of what the game plan looked like to me. It didn't look like they took a lot of big chances offensively. Maybe the line didn't help them a lot to be able to do that. But I think the game plan was, just protect the football and let the defense do its thing. We've got a rookie quarterback playing prime time in Houston. He has no idea how loud it's about to be in this building. Let's go after him.
And I think you'll echo me when I say the most encouraging thing. Definitely, I think when you looked at week 1, we got beat on several deep balls and got beat, several times where Richardson wasn't able to connect. That secondary completely turned that around. That was a 180. And so what you mentioned how often they blitzed. Well, you can't blitz if you don't have corners on the back end that can guard guys one-on-one. And Lassiter and Stingley both locked their guys down. They have an impressive rookie receiver that was barely seen or heard from. I'm not going to pronounce his name. That would be a crime in some states. But DJ Moore, obviously they got him going with some kind of wide receiver screens and that sort of thing. But they did not win a single battle downfield that I can remember. And both Stingley and Laster ended up with interceptions. So when you throw in Bullock's interception from week 1, this secondary is looking really damn good so far.
Yeah, I'm really impressed, especially with the play of the corners, as you mentioned. It looks like that the Texans may have a pretty nice little duo there at cornerback and possibly a pretty nice safety too, all extremely young. 2020 has been pretty damn good too, right? When you look at the fact that Will Harris went down before the season, you had 2 linebackers play all the snaps. 2 guys played linebacker the first 2 weeks, and they played every snap. So a big credit for 2020, where there hasn't been a lot of success on the ground in 2 weeks, and Jalen Petrie has been a huge part of that. That guy's been a fucking missile playing at the line of scrimmage as a safety who can disrupt the run game, can bring some pressure on the quarterback. This is the guy that he was at Baylor that got him drafted high, in the NFL draft. And then we just asked him to come be a traditional safety for 2 years. And that's not his game. He plays in the box. He plays around the line of scrimmage, and he's done it exceptionally well here through 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the big difference with him, I think, is he was there the first 2 years in position to make plays and would miss a ton of tackles. He hadn't done that. It was that one tackle behind the line of scrimmage where that receiver, running back receiving out of the backfield wasn't going anywhere. I don't know if you caught this, but Toa, they mentioned that he had lost like 10 or 15 pounds in the offseason. The biggest knock on him in his rookie season was he could not cover receivers out of the backfield. He couldn't cover tight ends. He couldn't cover receivers. He was just too slow. And so you would have to pull him on passing downs. Well, that's obviously his ability to close in on, would-be receivers and runners. His ability to cover guys out of the backfield is completely transformed by him transforming his body.
No, and credit to him for making that commitment in the offseason and doing what he needs to do to be able to take advantage of his opportunity, right? Like no one knew that Will Harris was going to get hurt and Christian Harris, not Will Harris, but Christian Harris is going to get hurt and, leave that spot open to him. But here he is taking advantage of it. Before we talk about next week, I have a random question for you.
Okay.
If you were dealing with the aliens after they've come down and they said, we want you to bring us the perfect male physical specimen to show to the head of all the aliens. We want to present a good looking guy. Would you bring LeBron James or Daniil Hunter?
Oh,
it gets tough, right? Daniil is just jacked and in unbelievable physical shape.
Yeah, I think LeBron's too tall.
You think so?
Yeah, I think I'd go with Hunter. I was going to say, Will Anderson might be a good consolation.
Another good choice, yeah. Texans defensive line or defensive ends specifically, they're going to wreak some havoc, man. Even when they don't bring pressure, Will Anderson lives in the backfield. Like he should literally be writing rent checks to every team's fucking backfield for the time he spends back there.
Well, keep in mind, Dinoco Autry is going to be back with this team after week 4. And I would say Derek Barnett is good enough to start on 75% of the teams out there. And when Autry comes back, he's probably your 4th defensive end.
Or how about the fact that maybe Autry moves inside on
He'll do
pass
that
rushing
stuff.
down and he'll on pass rushing downs. Now look at the fucking 4 you're
Yeah, they'll
bringing.
do that. I'm sure they'll do that
Ooh,
on third downs. Yeah.
that tackle who's the tackle 97?
Mario Edwards.
Yeah, so Edwards and Autry on the inside with Hunter and Will Anderson on the outside. Don't even need to bring an extra fifth guy at that point. Just cover and let those 4 go feast.
Yeah, that's
That's what
true.
the Giants did, right? The Giants won a Super Bowl with having 4 guys who can get after the quarterback and playing 7 deep all game.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say on offense, I think obviously, I mean, beyond Nico Collins, I think I'm most pleased with not necessarily the production, but I would say the presence of Stephon Diggs. He made a couple of really good catches in that game. And I like the fact that he is a target around in the red zone. But I like the fact that so far, knock on wood, we haven't heard anything from him complaining about his targets. We haven't heard anybody complain about their targets. We haven't heard Tank complain about his targets. And that's the way this offense is going to have to work. They're
Yeah,
just going to have to
everybody's happy when you win.
well,
Everybody's finding a W. It'll be a
well,
first loss where someone only got targeted 2 or 3 times, and then they say, "Well, I was open all game and I never really got the ball."
they're going to have to understand that eventually they're going to get theirs. There's going to come a time, and I don't know if it's this week for Tank, but if he goes 3 or 4 weeks where you don't hear from him, defensive coordinators are going to sit there and like, oh shit, we got to shut down Nico, we got to shut down Diggs. Then all of a sudden you leave Tank Dell one-on-one with some unsuspecting corner, and he could go off on a 200-yard receiving day easily.
Yeah, and those guys have such a great rapport. They'll find it. I will say this: I found a way to make it work in Madden. Okay, everybody had that. Everybody had 1,000-yard receiving years when I did it. So come on, buddy. I had 4,000-yard receivers, Scott, and 1,000-yard rusher. Come on.
You're going 18-0.
That or normally I'll drop a game here or there for a season, and I'll go like 17-1.
See, I go back to the Techno Bowl days where
Mm-hmm.
you had, if you picked the Raiders and you had Bo Jackson, you just automatically won because nobody could catch Bo Jackson.
Well, hopefully the Texans can catch Sam Darnold, right? As he seems to have found some like mythical fucking Viking power since he has joined his Norse brethren in Minnesota there and is playing some damn good football. We want to talk about a guy that, another quarterback who maybe got ruined where he was drafted, played for the shitty ass Jets, then goes and plays for the shitty ass Panthers, gets 1 year as a backup, in a good organization, and now here he is playing some great football.
Yeah, and I think it's because, O'Donnell's a good offensive coach. And I think he is one of those coaches that's along the lines of Bobby Slowick, where he's going to put a guy in a position. There's certain things you don't ask Sam Darnold to do. Like, he would be the last quarterback I'd RPO with, just because, he's not athletic at all.
He's sneaky. He will pick up 15, 20 yards in a well-timed, escape the pocket and take off.
But he's a guy that I hope, and the Vikings, I did some stuff for Battle Red blog this week. Unfortunately, the strength of their offensive line is in their tackles. So they may be able to neutralize Hunter and Anderson some, but still, if you're Hunter and Anderson, you don't have to worry about Anthony Richardson running all over the world on you. You don't have to worry about, Caleb Williams potentially running around on you. I think you can be more free to run on Sam Darnold. I think just about every quarterback in the NFL these days is athletic enough, to gain 10 or 15 yards. But I don't know if there are too many in the game that are less athletic than Darnold.
I could give you a few.
You're going to go Jared
Cousins,
Goff?
Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff.
Not many though.
I think Darnold could probably take Trey Lawrence in a 40.
Sunshine.
I'd like to see him and Brock Purdy in a 40. I think it'd be tight.
Yeah, that could be.
Couple
Well,
corn-fed boys just running hard.
and you kind of liked him coming out of college. That's the thing. You don't know. And that was the thing with Bryce Young. Bryce Young looked fantastic at Alabama. So it's really hard to say. I think the key, what the Texans defense has been able to do, the underrated thing they've been able to do is they shut down Jonathan Taylor and they shut down DeAndre Swift. Those two guys were not factors in either of those football games.
And what's encouraging there is the Texans have been gashed on the run for 5 straight years?
Yeah, well, the problem is last year, D'Amico Ryan statistically had a great year against the run, but that's because he had to cheat and add an extra guy to the box. And so they were gashed on the pass because they had one fewer defender out there, defending against the pass because they had to sell out against the run. Now they don't necessarily have to. You got two linebackers who are playing the run well. You've got Petrie who can play the run well, and then you've got, your defensive line. So if they are able to shut down the Vikings running game, I think it could be a very long day for Darnold.
I don't disagree with you. I really don't. I'm intrigued to see on the other side of things how the Texans handle that Vikings defense, right? Because Flores is damn good at what he does, right? His lawsuit is legitimate because he fucking deserves an opportunity. He's a great defensive coach. He puts his team in position to make plays, to win football games. He held a very good San Francisco offense in check last week. It's going to be interesting. It's just going to be, I think this is going to be another lower scoring game. I'm intrigued to see the Justin Jefferson Stingley matchup. I think that's going to be really the make or break of this game, right? If Stingley can take away Justin Jefferson, now that pass rush has an opportunity to get home because Darnold has to look at option 2, option 3 on the route chart, as opposed to just being able to work on the best receiver in the game.
Yeah, and the 49ers and Texans are really very similar in this one because we may be without Joe Mixon. And the 49ers, of course, are without Christian McCaffrey. And so they were able to convert the 49ers into a one-dimensional football team, which they've got a ton of targets. But even with all those targets, if you sit there and say, I know you're passing the football, there's a lot of things you can do as a defensive coordinator to combat that. If it's, oh shit, you can run it and pass, that's tough.
Yeah, Cam Akers, we're expecting big things from him this week, especially if Joe Mixon is unable to go. But let's switch gears real quick, Scott, talk a little bit of Astros baseball before we run out of time because they are really taking this thing down to the wire. They've had so many opportunities to put this thing away. The Mariners are not playing exceptional ball, but the Astros continue to struggle in close games. The bullpen burned them today. But they lost a winnable game on on Monday night. They pulled one out in extras last night. And then today, you lost hope the moment they gave up a single run.
Yeah, pretty much. When you looked at the ninth inning, Altuve hitting it right between the wickets there to your shortstop. But other than that, they really did not. Even Dubon's hit was just weakly hit. So there was not one thing that they did in that game where you're like, man, they almost got to him. I think Bregman missed a home run by 2 feet?
Yeah, that one was close. That would have tied it at 1.
But other than that, you never even sniffed it. And I think that's the key with this team is that's 2 games in the series where you scored 1 run and 0 runs. And so this team, we talked about it last week, they're second in the American League in ERA to only the Mariners. So this pitching staff has been good, and that includes April when they were the worst team in Major League Baseball in the ERA. So from May 1st on, the Astros probably have the best pitching staff in baseball, top to bottom. But when you're playing a 3-game series and you score 1 run in 2 of those, 2 of those games combined, you're just not going to win.
Yeah, it's It's definitely worrisome, right? The Bats need to wake up here in the next series. You've got the Angels, opportunity to hopefully get hot at home. Then, Mariners come to town, right? And you've got to take care of business, put the division away. There's a chance maybe you could wrap it up if the Rangers do anything to help us. But based on the last time these teams matched up, you're going to get no help from the Rangers, and you got to take care of business against the Angels, and then hopefully take care of business at home against the Mariners and head to Cleveland for some stress-free baseball.
Yeah, well, because I was doing their magic number 7. So let's say the Yankees sweep the Mariners. That's your magic number 5. And then if you win 3 games against the Angels, you're going into that series magic number 2. So that means you basically win 1 game and season's over in terms of the race.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope, right? You'd like to be able to line your rotation up to get some guys rest that need it, to get guys at bats that need it, like Kyle Tucker, get him some DH at bats, or let him play some right field or whatever he needs to start feeling a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, it's time to round into form. This team, as you said, pitches so well. This if the Astros have playoff success, to me, it's going to be on the back of, a great bullpen, 7, 8, 9, as far as shutting things down, and some great starting pitching, right? You're looking at possibly trying to go after that 2022 formula again of give me 5 or 6 good innings out of my starter, and I'm going to the pen.
Yeah, and I think the encouraging thing for today from today's game is I think in an October series you're not seeing Caleb Ort in a situation like you saw today.
Probably not. You used a lot of your bullets the first 2 games. You wanted to give him a rest. Hader threw more than an inning last night. Presley had some high leverage situations there.
Yeah, you're
pretty
looking
good
at
for the most part. Like I don't worry about the loss of how it happened. More of just like now's not the time to be dropping games. Like when you've got the best team in the American League right now, which is New York, against the team that's chasing you, let's put some space, right? Like, why is Kyle Tucker not in the lineup today? Why could Kyle Tucker not have DH'd? Why can Altuve not play second base and Kyle Tucker can DH? Why are we not trying to get as many games as we possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at today's game, I figured the Ort decision was we're not touching Cease, so let's just get out of this thing. Without
Ort hasn't been bad.
No,
back-to-back jacks is fucking
no,
great.
he hasn't, and he's obviously his ERA was under 2 coming in. So basically, what you're doing is you're just like, hey, all the guys in our bullpen have pitched well, so we're gonna save those top 3 guys. Yeah. Whereas in an October series, when it's a 3-game series and a wild card, it's balls to the wall.
Yeah, at worst you're seeing Neris there in October, right? Like at worst you're seeing, I don't know, or it got touched. It happens to the best, right? Like it fucking happens. Like you got him. Yeah. He didn't have a great day coming out of the pen, whatever it was. Guy's been nails for a while for us. It wasn't like you brought Montero in to try and get things right. Like, nah, you brought a guy in who's been successful. And he didn't have it today. And you know what? You move on, and you've got winnable games here that you've just got to take advantage of. Verlander's got to be good. There's no excuse for Justin Verlander to not go out there and shove against the Los Angeles fucking Angels, right? Like, I need 6 innings of 1 or 2 run ball out of that guy.
Yeah, and I was pleased to see what Tucker did against the Angels. He finally showed some signs of life, hit his 20th home run on the season. So, to me, he's been resting for 3 months. We don't need to be, let's give Kyle
That's what I'm saying. Give Tucker at bats. Let him play the outfield. Give him consistent.
We need to make sure load management, give him an off day. Screw load management. The guy's been on the shelf for 3 months.
Yeah.
He needs to be playing every day. He needs to be somewhere. If you want to take him out of the field, fine. DH him, but you need to, it's going to be hard to DH him when you sit there, and it's hard to take him out of the lineup today when 2 of your outfielders have broken bones now. So, I mean,
Hayward's playing a guy who was supposed to only be a hitter against right-handed pitchers And Jason Hayward is now, I guy's got to play every day, basically.
Yeah.
Dubon has to play every day again, but that's been all year. And Alvarez is playing the outfield, which happens a lot when Fromber pitches because there's so many ground balls. But again, you got to play Kyle Tucker in the outfield. We are in clinch a division time. You got to put your best 9 out there every day. You've as you mentioned, Kyle Tucker had months off. You've load managed throughout the season for this stretch right here. No more fucking off days. None of this other shit. I need Kyle Tucker playing every night. I need probably Caratini and Diaz in the lineup almost, 6 out of 7 days if we can. And let's go get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Scott, let's take a trip towards the stables, if I may, as we like to give out some awards here on this show. And this one is going to be for our horse's ass of the week. Scott, I'll let you go first.
All right. So Saturday morning. So it's a 6:30 kickoff for the TCU Horned Frogs. So Saturday morning, my hotel room is going to be ready around 3 o'clock. So I'm sitting there thinking, I just leave around 9 a.m., take a nice leisurely drive. Maybe I could go to the TCU team store, buy my dad his birthday gift, just kind of relax, lounge around, have a relaxing afternoon. I get past downtown Houston on 45, and all of a sudden I notice we're diverting down to 2 lanes. Then we're diverting down to 1 lane. Then we're diverting to 0 lanes. They have kicked us off the highway, and they're spitting us onto I-10 going east. So now I got to do the turnaround thing, going to I-10 west, and then I see the on-ramp to go to 45. Nope, that's shut down. And notice that they have shut down 10 miles of I-45. TxDOT. Last time I checked the calendar, this is September. Now, I'm not a lawyer, Tim. I didn't stay at Hollywood Inn Express last night, but the last time I checked, it is actually against the law to shut down a highway during hurricane season. That's the last time I checked that rule. Now, luckily, I think that has to be with a hurricane actually coming. But what happens if you're doing road destruction and then all of a sudden a hurricane develops in the Gulf? Then you're kind of screwed. I noticed when I was coming back from Fort Worth that they shut down even more of I-45. They were spitting people off even sooner. Now, I know what you're going to say, Tim. Some of the people are going to say, well, why didn't you check the route before you went? Because I didn't think, let me check the route in case they shut down an entire fucking highway. Needless to say, my voice was shot before I even got to the game because I was yelling so many F-bombs at TxDOT. Because I'm sitting there thinking, who the hell shuts down a highway? Who does that? And I looked and I didn't see them really doing anything because it was a Saturday morning. And so I'm like, what the hell? Why are we shutting down a highway? So TxDOT, you're my horse's ass for the week. That's
a good one. That's ridiculous. And I am so sorry that happened to you, Scott. I feel like I didn't actually say my horse's ass last week. I was in the process of agreeing with yours, Scott, and forgot to mention my own when I listened back through the tape. So I'm going to take 2 this week, okay? Because I can, because I'm the producer of this podcast. First and foremost, Brennan fucking Miller. You suck. You absolutely fucking suck. Your behind the plate performance last night was one of the most atrocious things that I've ever seen. Your zone was dog shit. Part 1. You only called 92% of the pitches that you called balls and strikes for correctly. That is barely league average. Number 2, you missed a hit by pitch. Absolutely missed it. The batter is sitting there fucking telling you that ball didn't hit me, and you still missed it. Then somehow we went to replay, and they fucking missed it, and here we are. Number 3, you missed a foul ball off Altuve's foot. Don't know how, but I do know that's the second fucking time this season that you have been behind the plate and have refused to ask for help from the third base umpire, from the first base umpire, from the second base umpire, from fucking anybody on whether it hit Altuve or if it went straight into the ground. You are a umpiring team, and you should have no issue at all relying on your fellow, crew members out there to get the call right. Because at the end of the day, let's get it right. And you know what you need to do to get the call right? You need to know the fucking rules. And again, this guy doesn't know the rules of baseball. We had to take a 5-minute and 10-second delay for him to figure out what the rule was. You need to know the rules. This is your fucking job. This is not the NFL where you guys had to fight for the right to not have to be a lawyer during the week and then be an NFL ref on Sundays. No, this is your full-time job. Your job is to be a Major League Baseball umpire and to know the rules of the game. And you need to know that you can disengage with a runner on base. It doesn't matter that you haven't thrown a pitch yet. It's not that hard to figure that out because it's in the fucking rule book, which should be in your pocket. If you have to look it up, just boom, right there. Okay, got it. Boom, we're good. 5-29, whatever. Boom, we're done. Secondary scumbag. I went to it's now Oracle Park in San Francisco. Beautiful ballpark. But I'm sitting next to what has to be one of the biggest jackasses I've ever sat next to in my entire life. This guy is from Milwaukee. He sounds like he's been sipping fucking cold beer and eating brats all goddamn day. And would not shut up, is screaming at the top of the lung how easy it is to hit a baseball. It's just simple physics. Let's just do the math. He's calling people idiots for swinging and missing. He's saying, hit that ball, bitch. He's screaming to the point where a father and his young son had to leave the game. Finally, as I'm leaving, this guy decides to start chirping at me, thinking he's going to get under my skin because the Giants lost the game. I'm in another ballpark. My wife's a Giants fan. I may have worn a Giants pullover and a Giants hat, not by choice, but it was put on me. And this guy thinks he's going to start talking shit. And I'm like, I don't care, man. Like, I came in to this stadium for the first time ever. I just want to take it all in. And you are the worst part of it. You, sir, are the worst part of this fucking evening. I don't even remember what the score was of the game. I do remember that he was a horse's ass, though.
Oh, I was going to say on your first half, so I want to do a shout out to my father. He actually turned 81 on Monday, but we couldn't get together until this evening. And so we were talking about, when last night's game. Now, something you got to understand about my dad refereed basketball at the college level. He was in the Southwest Conference for both men and women. He also refereed football, but he was only a high school back judge in football. And he says, you know what? One of the things referees we understand is we're going to blow calls. There's going to be times we just don't see it. There's a foul. We don't see the foul. There's a travel. We don't see the travel. He says, but the damn rules. There's no excuse for not knowing the rules. And he always tells this story, Tim, where there was a game between Lamarck and Galveston Ball. I think it was like freshman football. So one of them's got the ball on the 10-yard line. He had a face mask penalty on the defender. So the referee marks off 15 yards, 5 of it being in the end zone, pulls up his hands, touchdown. And neither coach complained. They were just like, okay, works for me.
Yeah.
So, not knowing the rules is just completely nuts. And I think everybody's had to deal with that guy at a baseball game. My favorite is when you're sitting like on the third base line, the guy's arguing balls and strikes. You're just like, come on, dude.
Fun. This guy was like mispronouncing players' names on the Brewers, right? So it's like, clearly you don't watch a lot of baseball, guy. Like, your friend had a ticket. He invited, and then the worst part, man, the guy that brought him was there in Giants gear. But by the 9th inning, he was standing on his feet with 2 outs, like applauding for the Brewers. And I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, I could bring a friend of mine who's like, my friend, him, Ira Liebman, is a Yankees fan. Yeah. Ira and I have gone to Yankees-Astros games together.
Sure.
You know what I would never do at the end of the game if the Astros were losing? Is fucking stand and applaud the New York fucking Yankees. That would never happen. This guy, like both of them, just bums, man. Fucking bums.
Yeah.
Horses asses.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Scott, let's tip a hat tip of the week.
Okay, so I'm actually, I had to come up with this the last minute. Not a lot of hat tips this week, but your and my Chicago White Sox had a winning streak. They won 3 games in a row, Tim. Now, in order to avoid making history, they're going to have to go 7-3 in their last 10 games. Raise your hand if you think that's going to happen.
6 of the games are against the Angels.
Yeah, they've lost 2 in a row to the Angels now. So, don't know. Don't know if that's going to happen. But, hey, they're fighting, they're clawing and scratching. They could be phoning it in. Grady Sizemore, tip of the cap. You have got your guys playing hard. You're not good. You never were good, but hey, at least you're not playing out the stream.
And he doesn't even have the ability to have some naked pictures of the owner that you could take pieces of clothes off for each win, because the owner's a fucking old man that no one wants to see naked.
If you lose this game, we peel off another piece.
That's what it is. We're peeling it off for losses. Next thing you know, he's there in a fucking man thong. I mean, at this amount of losses, Ryan Stores, he's signing up for a fucking OnlyFans at this point.
Jerry Reinsdorf is going to come into the clubhouse and is going to do a lap dance for you if you lose this game.
Oh my god! All right, I got a minor hat tip. I'm going to go real quick. I'm going to give a hat tip to Manny Machado. Like, you want to talk about a guy who's on a fucking heater right now, Scott? Like, Manny Machado's on a goddamn heater. But during last night's game, after he'd already homered, in a huge at bat with a runner on third base and only 1 out, Manny Machado comes up to face Ryan Presley. And Machado swung and missed at 3 of the 4 pitches he saw. But on 2 of the pitches, he was just badly fooled. And what does he do? Like, he doesn't get pissed. He literally like looks at Ryan Presley and, hey, you got me, good pitch. And then when he struck him out as he's walking back to the dugout, hey, you got me, good pitch. It's a little thing. Game respects game. Machado's on an unbelievable heater, and he knows, hey, I'm going to get more big opportunities, but hey, I got fooled. So I do want to give a minor hat tip there to Manny Machado. And I want to give a pretty big tip of the cap to just probably, we'll call it my wife, unbelievable trip that she put together. We had the chance to go to San Francisco, where I've never been. We took in a Giants game. Fisherman's Wharf, saw the Sea Lions, had a sourdough bread bowl. Another minor hat tip for whoever invented the bread bowl. That guy's a fucking genius. Did the double-decker bus tour, went over the Golden Gate Bridge. Really, really jam-packed it all into what was a pretty fantastic trip and a great time. And I planned absolutely none of it, Scott. So a big hat tip to her for putting a great trip together and really giving me a great view of what San Francisco is in less than 3 days.
Yeah, we went there, I think 3 summers ago. That was a good trip. We saw a game at Oracle. Did you make it down to Ghirardelli's Square?
We did that one. We did Boudin's. We did, we took the double-decker bus and hit everything, man. I walked 9 miles 2 days in a row.
And Anne got herself because it was just Anne and I, because Janet had to fly back. Unfortunately, her best friend from high school passed away, at that point from cancer. But so Anne and I went to the game, and she got a Ghirardelli sundae. Oh my God. If I had eaten the whole thing, I would not be doing this podcast with you, because I'd be 6 feet under the ground. But it might have been worth it. I did take a bite. It was good. It was really good stuff. I did have a hot chocolate, though. That was probably the best cup of hot chocolate I've ever had.
And it's everywhere. Like, we stayed at this resort underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and they were giving away Ghirardelli's hot chocolate for free. Just for free, giving it away. I was like, yes, please. But no, great city. And again, my wife I know she works hard to make sure we have great trips and memorable time together. So she definitely deserves the hat tip here this week. All right, Scott. People have wronged America and you and I, and they need to be recognized as scumbags of the week. You want to go first?
Sure. I've got a dual scumbag this week. I've got one of them making history, Tim. This is his third week in a row on the countdown. JD Vance.
Oh, God. He had some dumb things to say this week.
You, sir, are a scumbag. But I'm going to put another one in there with him, Laura Loomer. And they are a joint scumbag because they are the ones who are, number one, were the first people to put forth this whole Haitians eating pets thing and amplify it. Now, Laura Loomer, I think she deserves a special place in hell because did you hear her comments about Kamala Harris?
Yes, I did. She's a piece of shit, but I think having to have sex with Donald Trump is pretty much like hell.
Yeah, well, she denied those rumors. So I'm sure you're satisfied with her denials. But with JD Vance, here's a guy who went on a morning show on Sunday, Sunday, and said, well, if I have to make up a story in order for y'all to focus on the issues, then I'm going to do that. And then for the second time he's done this on a morning show, Tim, when the person, rightfully asked him, wait a minute, did you just admit that you made up the story? Can't hear, go through a tunnel, can't hear that. That's the second time he's done that, where he's pretended not to be able to hear the journalist once he's been caught. Now, he backtracked and he said, well, no, it actually happened, but I misspoke and all this, that, and the other. So what does this jackass do for, 2 days later? And this is why he made the list. Some idiot waited for 12 hours at one of Trump's courses and decided with a high-powered rifle, I'm going to take a shot at Trump. So the news reports, thank y'all, mainstream media, all they reported were there were shots at Trump's golf course when he was there. It was Secret Service emptying their weapons, not connecting with the guy once, by the way. And JD Vance, he comes out in his speech and he just goes, well, this is, the left is just the irresponsible, rhetoric, and this is what's causing this. Less than 2 days after he admitted to making up a story about the Haitians. Now, I wrote an article on Substack making fun of Donald Trump's gaffe on the debate. I owned up to that last week where I said, maybe that's probably something I shouldn't have done. Because now they've had bomb threats at hospitals, at schools. They had a festival where they celebrate diversity in the town of Springfield. They had to cancel that. You have the mayor sitting there going on, please stop. And Vance is like, nope, not going to do it. Not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing it. And sit there and say, don't call, you shouldn't be calling Donald Trump a fascist. Okay, JD. What else do you want me to call him? Heard another guy on the radio, another guy on TV sitting there saying, well, you shouldn't say he's going to be a dictator on day one. We're just quoting him, you asshole. He's the one that said he was going to be a dictator on day one. You don't want me quoting the guy? You don't want me calling him a fascist when that's clearly what he is? You don't want me, pointing out that, geez, this is the guy that's been saying, he calls, people like us on the left every name in the book. He'll call us a communist. He'll call us a socialist. Then he'll turn around and call us a fascist because anybody that knows the definition of those words, and I do because I'm a political science major, knows that you can't be those three things at the same time. It's impossible. One of them's extremely right-wing. One of them's extremely left-wing. You cannot be both. These things are impossible. But here we have Mr. I know lots of English professors. Sure you do. Sitting there saying, oh, the leftist fascist. And you're like, okay? I don't know. But, JD Vance, for spreading these rumors and for endangering the lives of everybody in Springfield. And then turning around and admitting that you spread the lies. And Laura Loomer, for your whispering in Donald Trump's ear, hey, say this at the debate. It'll go down great. Yeah, you and for also saying, that basically Kamala slept her way to the top, and I'm saying it the nice way, not the way she said it. You are both scumbags.
The only thing that surprises me about JD Vance at this point is that he didn't say, and I really think he should have just gone with, well, Jesus spoke in parable too. Like, I think that should have been the tactic that he went with instead of I can't hear you. Just, you know what? You're like 90% of the way there. Just start comparing yourself to Jesus. I think that's what your voter base would really appreciate. Like, I really think they'd love it. I do.
But congratulations, JD. You have managed to do something that Greg Abbott hasn't been able to do, that Ted Cruz hasn't been able to do, that Ken Paxton hasn't been able to do, that Donald Trump hasn't been able to do. You have been a scumbag 3 weeks in a row. Congratulations, JD. That's quite an accomplishment.
Pretty impressive for a couch fucker, I will say. Yeah. All right, Scott. My scumbag this week is Nikon Sports. This story comes way of Reddit. I stumbled across it in our baseball. So essentially, Kikuchi went to the same high school as Shohei Ohtani just 4 years earlier. A reporter for Nikon Sports reached out to Kikuchi and requested some time with the interview. Flew all the way over from Japan. Kikuchi was like, I feel really bad. This guy flew all the way over here. I'm going to give him more than just the standard 2 hours. So he goes to his hotel in his own car, picks him up, takes him with him for the day, has breakfast with him, spends the whole day with him, drops him off, goes to the game. Well, the article comes out, and it was nothing to do with Kikuchi. It was an article about Shohei Ohtani. And they just wanted to be able to write Shohei Ohtani's former teammate said this. And they took literally 6 hours of the time and reduced it to 2 lines. And, good for Kikuchi. He took to Twitter. He defended himself. But it's absolutely disgusting, that we live in a world where you would just straight up lie to someone who pitches for your national team. You want to talk about a guy who represents Japan in the WBC that just won it all. Kikuchi was a part of that roster. They're teammates. Like, why would you want to give ill or hard feelings generated between 2 members of your nation? No, good for Kikuchi. He literally said, like, this has nothing to do with Shohei. The media just knows that everything that has his name in it will get clicks. But you used me and you abused me and you made me feel a certain way. And all I was doing was giving you time. So, fuck them. This guy has been nothing but great since he's been an Astro, and really unfortunate situation that they would take advantage of him, making him think maybe, hey, I'm pitching great. They back home, they want to know what changed, what I'm doing differently, making him think he's getting a little love. And all in all, it's just another article about Ohtani.
Yeah, and that's a missed opportunity. You're talking about a guy that were the Astros 7-0.
Could be a great article, right? If you really did the right fucking article.
I mean, in the last, a couple of times he made it through 7 innings, in 2 out of his last 3 starts, I think.
And doesn't even just talk like culturally. Hey, you don't speak English. You went from a very international city in Toronto. Now you live in Houston. Tell us a little bit about that. How have you adjusted? What's been working? That'd be a great article for fucking Sports Illustrated, let alone your native country of Japan.
Yeah. I don't know if he was ever traded when he was in Japan, but that would be fascinating to, just to find out, from them, hey, what is it like to be traded in Major League Baseball versus what would it like to be traded in Japan? What are the differences? How do organizations handle it? That would be a great behind the scenes article, that you would get some insight on that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they blew it and they wanted some clickbait instead. So, Kikuchi, you got wrong, my guy. And I will say, if you ever came on Born on the Bayou Sports, it would be all about you, baby. Fuck Ohtani. I want some Kikuchi time.
Yeah, we'd have to bring in the interpreter as well.
Oh, one thought Kikuchi and translator time.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
And we'd have to get it approved by the Astros PR team, which, let's be honest, is probably not happening. I mean, I still don't know how we got Robert Ford. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how that happened.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that experience, though.
It was great.
And I think, he would say that, we treat him fairly.
Oh, I think so as well. So all 20 people who heard that interview would agree with you as well. But no, Scott, I think that's going to do it for us here this week. I think we nailed it on the scumbag. JD Vance, a piece of shit. And I think Nikon Sports really did our guy Kikuchi wrong there. But anything you want to add this week? What you got going on over on the old Substack for the people?
Well, so I'm starting to break down the catchers. So I finally got past the positional medians, and so I'm finally starting to talk about some guys. So I've so far profiled every Hall of Famer at the catcher position. So now we're going to start talking about the guys on the outside looking in, and of course got the political commentary, which just happens, when something like JD Vance pops up. I'll probably say something about it. We're still waiting with bated breath for Tim's next piece.
I will be posting that. I will be posting that tonight, Scott. I have been inspired, and I have actually 2 I'm working on. The first one will go up tonight, and then I'll time the second one probably to go out sometime tomorrow. But yeah, your gentle prodding is definitely felt, and we'll stay on the once a week at least. I haven't missed a week.
No, that's true. No, you haven't.
But Tim's Mind Cannon, check it out. It's on the Thoughts of a Native Texan Substack. If you haven't followed the Facebook page, please do like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. Be sure to follow the show as well on whatever podcast app that you use. But be sure to join the Born on the Bayou Sports movement. We want to keep growing. We want to keep doing this for you guys. But we appreciate everybody who made us a part of your week. We will see you next week.